Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. I wanted to let everybody in. There's a good crowd rolling in, but welcome. Welcome to another edition of Gimmal's Education Series. My name is Marcia Shields, and I'm from our customer success team. Our goal for these sessions are the same. We hope to enhance your expertise with your Gimmal software. As you may have seen, we are recording this session, and it will be shared after the event. Tim Butler is with me today. He's going to be your subject matter expert, and he's going to be talking about Gimmal Physical. Today's session is on the subject of requesting records and the configuration options available. The format will be about 15 to 20 minutes for Tim's demonstration, followed by your questions in our Q&A section right after. Before we get started, I did want to do a quick poll since we have a good group on here. So I'm going to launch a little poll, just asking you, how do your employees currently request physical records? So if you could answer that, that would be helpful to get your insights. Guys, a few seconds here. Tim, if you don't know, the options for the answers were a software application, email, Teams, and Slack, phone call or wake up, and records are not requested. But it looks like the majority of people are either using Teams, email, and Slack, or the software application itself. So that's great. All right, well, thank you. We'll keep that up for a couple minutes, but we can move on, Tim, so we can get to the good part of the demonstration today.
All right, thanks, Marcia. Appreciate it. And with that, let's gonna swap screens over here. Let's jump over to the Gimmal Physical application. And guys, Marcia, if you give me a quick confirmation, you're now seeing Gimmal Physical.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Let's jump in then. Guys, we're going to be looking at the requesting functionality, and I hope that most of you are using this functionality, but I want to make a kind of an important point right up front. You actually never have to use it, right? It's an optional feature, but we do strongly recommend that. Another way to say that is, in the end, you have physical records management software to keep track of your records, right? Whether they're boxes or files or microfilm, whatever it happens to be. And so you need to indicate the movement of those items. And you do that via what we call a transfer. Well, the requesting functionality is sort of a precursor to that. And as the poll indicated, a lot of clients that are just coming on board with Gimmal, they've not used software previously, right? People have called, they've emailed, they've walked down to get what they need. Obviously, that works. You've made it thus far, a lot of you, without having any software in place. But there are a lot of benefits to using the requesting functionality. So I want to make the point up front, you never have to use it, but we would strongly encourage you to do so. Related to that, guys, and hopefully a reminder for all of you, the Gimmal Physical software is browser-based software, which means it's super easy to distribute throughout your organization. Nothing needs to be installed on any devices that are using the software. So just roll it out to the masses. Furthermore, we really don't price our software based upon number of users. We did back in the day, but no longer. We encourage you actually to roll it out to as many people as you want. All of that to say, right, if end users are not logging in, then requesting really makes no sense. It does require participation by the end users themselves. So please be aware of those kind of just big caveats right up front. Now, if you have said, yep, we want to do requesting, Tim, we're on board with that. A couple of other things that are really important to note. If we go into security, just very briefly, we're not going to spend a lot of time in here, but just to quickly mention, if you want to use the requesting functionality, two things in particular to be aware of. And I'm just jumping into a particular role, and I'm just going to focus on boxes. This would also be true of files or any other trackable items you have. But this is a key security right here, right? So if you do want end users logging in and searching and requesting, make sure that that right is checked for all the roles that you want people in that role to be requesting. Furthermore, there's another section specific to requests within security, and the rights that you see here are really specific to your records management team, those individuals who will be fulfilling requests. So just be aware of these two sections in security. get these security rights set the way you want, if indeed you do want to use the requesting functionality. Now, once you've got that all taken care of, let's just mention a couple of other framework type things, specifically under the section of the application called preferences. Within preferences, again, I'm going to start here on the boxes portion of preferences. It would be true for files and other item types as well. But really, I want to focus your attention on the preferences you see here, these 5 that I've just highlighted. This topmost one is probably the most important. You should be aware that every time a user is created in the application, whether you do that manually or we do it automatically via a single sign-on integration, we actually set this preference for you to the barcode of the user themselves. We just assume, right, if Joe Schmo is logging in and he's going to be doing requesting, well, probably most of the time he wants those items delivered to him. So we set this default request location to the barcode, which reflects Joe Schmo. Now, you can change that, right, as you can with all the preferences. Sometimes there's situations where individuals really aren't requesting so much for themselves, but maybe they're requesting for their boss or their superior, whatever the example happens to be. So you can replace that default value. Working down here very quickly, we'll come back to this in just a little bit, but you can alter whether or not we auto query the possible places that you could request. This preference actually affects both transferring and requesting. And then these next couple guys, these next 3, in fact, have to do primarily with limits, if you will, that you as a records management team can set. Now, I have in my demo app, I actually have these set at the system level, but be aware, this is a good candidate, this checkout quantity limit, defaulted to 10. You could change the scope of this to role or even user, and then you can vary this limit. This really translates to, using Joe Schmo again, how many boxes is Joe Schmo allowed to have? Well, right now he's allowed to have 10, and if he's already got 10 and he tries to request number 11, then he will not be able to do that. So there's a checkout quantity limit. Similar to that, there's a checkout time limit, how long, and this is in days, how long are individuals allowed to have items before they're considered overdue? And then when things are overdue, one other notification setting that you can set here within preferences. So be aware of these 5 preferences on the boxes and or files tab, or pages, I should say, of preferences itself. And then also be aware there is a section here specific to requests. Just a couple of preferences here. For those of you that kind of have a more structured or kind of a busier process, if you will, the example primarily here would be that you want to let end users initiate a request, but before the records management team actually needs to respond to it, you'd like the department head or their superior to approve what it is they're doing. Now, most of our clients keep this at approved. That is, when a person initiates a request, it's already, quote, approved from the get-go, but you can set this preference value to pending, which then presupposes a department head or someone like that would come in and approve the request before the records management teams need to respond to it. And then this other one here, rejected requests, we'll talk about this a little bit later. We default this to 30 days. It's just a cleanup mechanism that we have to get rid of outdated, no longer needed, unfulfilled requests. All right, so with all that as the backdrop, let's actually jump in here to the boxes tab itself, and let's talk about requesting. Now, as an end user, assuming they have the rights to request, they're going to see 2 buttons here, request pickup and request delivery. Guys, our time won't allow us today to get into request pickup, but you should know it's almost identical to request delivery. So really, when we cover this, you're covering just about everything that happens under request pickup as well. I think they're really intuitive, right? But request pickup means, hey, records management team, I have something I want you to pick up, either because it's brand new and I want you to ingest it, or I'm returning an item that was checked out to me. Whereas request delivery means records management team, please send something to me. Now let's just grab this example here. I'm going to grab, the end users can request 1 or multiple items. I'm going to request these 2, or at least I'm going to begin the initiation process for a request. I'll select those records and then click on request delivery. Now on the ensuing request page, there's a bunch of things that can happen. So while we're parked here, we're going to talk a little bit about this. You'll notice there's some off-site vendor references here. I'll just make mention right now, guys, that the purposes of our education session today is really for those of you that are requesting or having end users request from your own central facilities, your own warehouse or your own central file room. But it works equally well with those of you using offsite vendors. Now, in a little more detail, what I'm talking about there is either Iron Mountain, or if you've got an offsite vendor that uses the O'Neill software. For the end user, it's a real benefit, right? Because let's just be honest, they don't really care where the record is. They just need it. So they want to search for it, they want to request it, and then click the right buttons to get that process working. For now, just know we have nice integrations with both Iron Mountain and the O'Neill software vendors that in the end, all of your records, whether they're on-site or off-site, your end users can search and request them right from this single pane of glass. We basically, for those of you in the know about those two, we replace either the IM Connect utility provided by Iron Mountain or the O'Neill Bridge utility provided by the O'Neill software vendors. All right, so just be aware of that. On this page, you'll see a summary of what was selected on the previous page. In this case, I've got a couple of records. Be aware of this record description. You can vary. Right now, I've got it set very basically to just the barcode, but you can set this to any summary information that you want. This box right here, guys, it's what I call the magic box. It is the all-important box on this page. This reflects the destination. That is, it's the unique identifier or the barcode of the destination where these items are supposed to be delivered to. Remember the preference we saw just a few moments ago. I had mine set, my default request destination to myself. I'm logged in as this fictitious person known as super user. That's my barcode. We just assume that super user wants the stuff for himself. However, super user has a bunch of options. I'll jump down here as the second option, this recent transfer destinations. This will build up over time. So in particular, if you've got the situation where one user is requesting on behalf of multiple people, this list will grow, and it makes it very convenient for them. If they don't want the item delivered to themselves, they can pick a different person or a different place off of this list. If the default doesn't work, if the convenience control doesn't work, you can actually also use this universal control to choose any other shelf, location, or person to which these items should be delivered. In the end, one way or another, we actually need that unique barcode. I will mention here as well, don't necessarily recommend it, but you could actually type the barcode in here, right? Records managers start to know these barcodes over time, so you could type the barcode value in, or alternately, you could actually scan it in with the barcode scanner, although that use case rarely comes up. Scrolling down the page, there is this comments box, free-form text. They can enter any additional information that they want. And then we'll speak just for a moment here about alternate fulfillment method. Now, starting just a version or two ago with Gimmal Physical, we pre-packaged it with these kind of already in place two alternate fulfillment method options. Pretty intuitive, but let's just explain them for just a moment. Permanent withdrawal means the end user is saying, hey, records management team, not only do I want this box or file right now, but I want it for the long term. I don't want you housing it anymore. I'd like to make this a permanent withdrawal. Please send it to me basically permanently. Or another variation of that, which occasionally comes up, the end user is able to say, hey, not only do I want to permanent withdraw this thing from the warehouse, I want to actually delete this record. We don't need this record in the system record anymore for whatever the reason happens to be. You'll have both of these values for those of you in the later versions of Gimmal Physical. And this last one is one I just added. This is a list, the alternate fulfillment method. And like all lists in Gimmal Physical, you can populate it with any additional values you want. Here's just one example. It's a way for the end user to say, hey, records management team, I need the information, but I kind of like to circumvent that traditional checkout, check-in process. Would you mind, Mr. or Mrs. Records Manager, actually image scanning that file or that box and all its contents, creating a PDF, and then actually take that PDF and ingest it into Gimmal Physical? Yes, our wheelhouse is the management of physical records, but in certain situations, this one in particular, We do allow you to house electronic copy. Primarily, that's stuff that's related to the physical records that are already being managed. So an option here to specify a different fulfillment method. And then finally, guys, I'll just briefly mention this big control at the end. For those of you not using an offsite vendor, you can ignore it. In fact, you won't even see this control on your page. But if you have an offsite vendor, this control is how we translate people's information in Gimmal Physical to the offsite vendor so they know where to deliver those items to. So I know it's taken quite a bit of time talking through it. In real life, this usually takes just a couple seconds, but this is the page the end user sees to initiate the requesting process. Now we're going to go ahead and use this guy as just kind of a case in point example. Every single time an end user initiates a request, there is certain logic checks that we perform within the application. And I kind of prepackaged it this way just to show you guys, but here's a couple of things that could happen. Notice for that box 220, we're telling the end user, hey, this request failed because the item is already where you want it to be. If you were paying really close attention there, you would have seen that this box 220 was already actually checked out to super user. So why is he requesting it? But this happens, right? People forget that they requested this thing last week. It's sitting right there in their cube of their office, and they try to request it again. We'll let them know, hey, you've already got it. We're not going to need to fulfill this request. But then you'll also see a second type option here. This guy, similar to the top one, but actually what's going on in this guy here is he had already issued a request. Now it hasn't been delivered to him yet. Or sorry, actually I reversed it. I kind of mixed this up, guys, but this second one is what I just said. And the top one is if they've issued a request already, but you have not yet fulfilled the request. In either case, we're going to let the end user know, hey, cannot do this. Now, please be aware, this poor end user, he might be making a legitimate request, but the item may be checked out to somebody else, or someone may have beat him to the request. In that case, we will actually add this request to the wait list itself. So we do support wait listing. Now, if we can indeed convince you guys, right, roll this out to the masses, let them log in, do their own requesting. The question becomes, how are you as a records management team made aware of incoming requests? Guys, we give you three different options to do that. Number one, on the request link on the application ribbon, in this case, click on box requests. On this page, you'll see a snapshot of all unfulfilled requests. You can see I've got a couple here that I kind of set up just for our series here today. One is a pickup, one is a delivery. Like all of our grids in Gimmal Physical, you can click on any of these column headers to sort any way you want. By default, we show the oldest requests at the top, and the newer ones come down towards the bottom. One really nice new feature, guys, that we just introduced in the last version of Gimmal Physical is what you see right here. The number of rows. This was always preset to 10 before. And for those of you processing lots of requests, it got kind of annoying sometimes, right, going from page to page. So now you can bump it up to a higher number so you see everything on one page. You can select multiple requests and then take whatever action it is you feel you need to take. If it's just kind of someone changed their mind, they issued a request and they called you and said, oh, no, never mind, you can delete requests. You can fulfill requests. We don't actually recommend this, but fulfill has the same function as a transfer. It is a convenience feature. It's a way for you to say, yep, take these guys and fulfill them right now. If you are using that preference where the initial status is pending, here's where a department head could come in and approve. And then you can also reject. For whatever reason, if you want to reject a request, and this is where that other preference that we briefly mentioned comes into play. If you do reject a request, it will kind of stay there, in my case, up to 30 days until we automatically delete it. So you have all this functionality here. One other nice new feature we've just added is what you see here, where you can take the records that have been requested. You can click this nice little convenience button here. It will bring you back to in this case, the boxes tab, and show you just those records that have been requested. One other quick thing I want to point out, guys, if you are using an offsite vendor, you'll see the link specific to that offsite vendor, and it's really almost an identical page. The only real difference, well, the most significant difference, I should say, is this button that says submit. Just so you guys are aware, when you are using an offsite vendor, end users can still initiate the request, but we don't just willy-nilly send them to the offsite vendor. They get put in this holding queue. You can approve, you can reject, do whatever you need to do. It's really not until you click that submit button that they are then sent over to the offsite vendor. So please be aware of that. As I was saying just a few moments ago, 3 ways for you to know about incoming requests. The request link here, and one of these links here is option 1. Option 2, for those of you that are housing records in your own facilities, primarily your own warehouses, you get some standard reports, whether they're box pick list or file pick list or the pickup versions of them. Let's take a quick look at just one of these guys, the box pick list report. The idea here, guys, is you'd print these reports off, you would carry them around your warehouse with you as a pulling aid. And a real nice feature here is we put barcodes right on the report. So if you were to actually use a tethered barcode scanner and scan these barcodes, the moment you did that, it could do 2 things. Number 1 is it would affect the transfer. It would then say, okay, I've now transferred this box out to Mr. Super User. But you could have also set up an email notification that the moment that you scan this, it will send an email back to the initial requester, alerting them to the fact that you are in process of fulfilling their request. That way they're not left wondering and pestering you and questioning you. Did you get my request? They'll know exactly when you got it and when you're working on it via this automated email itself. This is option 2, guys, for knowing about incoming requests. Option 3 is what I just alluded to, is the email notifications. Be aware that you can tie automated emails to any of these action buttons. A real common example is either a request pickup or the request delivery. In other words, every time end users request something for you guys to come get or to deliver, you could set the system up to automatically email you as a records manager that this is what they are wanting. To that end, let's jump quickly under admin and look at notifications so you're aware how to set this up. I set one up ahead of time. You'll see here it says send a notification when a request for boxes is performed and it's being delivered to the administrators or whatever role the records management team happens to be in. So I set that one up. Let's just quickly walk through how you would set up an additional notification. I'm going to pick one that's a kind of a personal favorite of mine. I've come here and there's a lot of things you could do on the notification page. What we're going to look at right here is an action on the boxes tab itself. We're going to scroll down to the section about requests. Here's one of my favorites. What we're saying here is I want to set up a notification, an automatic trigger, if you will, that every time someone requests a box that's in my possession, I want to be alerted to that fact. And I'm using I in the general sense. You as the records management team would be the one who actually sets this up. So let's set up the notification event itself. We get our confirmation. Let's close this page. We'll come back to this page here, and here is the notification we just set up. And what you might typically do here is you would take that notification event or trigger, and then you would assign it to people in the general role. What this all translates to, guys, now is that if I've got a box checked out to Joe Schmo, Jane Doe then logs in and requests that box, we will send an email to Joe Schmo, letting him know that, hey, Joe, you've got a box in your possession that someone else just requested. Could you hurry up and send it back down to records management so we can pass it on to the next person who is waiting. So be aware of the email notifications. We're focused here on requesting today, but you can use them for a variety of purposes. Last thing I'll mention here today, guys, a feature that a lot of folks just are not aware of. So let me call it out now. Back under admin, we're going to talk about broadcast notifications. Again, similar to email notifications, but unlike the email notifications, which require somebody, end users that is, to do something to have them automatically triggered, this page is really intended for the administrators or the records management team. And there's 3 things you can do here. The first one reflects those preferences that we saw way back at the beginning here today. You could do this kind of thing. You could say, hey, Gimmal Physical, and you could do it role by role, or you could select all roles. You could say, you know what? I want you to send an email out to every single person in any role that has items that are past due. You'd simply choose that and you'd click on send. Option 2 would be, well, I'm not going to do it for those that are past due, but There may be people who have too many items. They kind of circumvented the whole requesting logic and got a bunch of boxes transferred to them and they're over the limit. Let's go ahead and select that and then send them a message saying, hey, you've got too many items. Please send some of them back. There is a third option here, guys, really not specific to requesting. But if you just want to send a general message out to the whole records management world within your organization, you can do so. So that, guys, is kind of the quick overview, if you will, of the requesting functionality within Gimmal Physical. Just going to mention one more thing here. Let me actually get out of here, go over. Guys, some nice tutorials. So I've jumped over here to our website, the Gimmal website. We've recently updated. If you come here and you can see the URL, you can go to our homepage, or I've just kind of navigated right to this to begin with, the Gimmal Physical section of our website. If you come down here and click on tutorials, you'll see a list of 11 different tutorials, and there's the one for requesting. Strongly encourage you to use these, or if you've got new staff and you want to kind of have them self-train, these tutorials basically do what I just did, but it's kind of self-paced. You click on the link and you just go through these pages one at a time to learn all about the requesting functionality. All right, so that's that. Let's come back to our presentation.
Great job, Tim. Lots of info. Lots of questions too. So it's Tim in the hot seat at the moment. So I'm going to start from the ones that came in earliest, just so you know. So first question, Tim, user barcode, can that be the employee ID?
Absolutely. The only thing that barcode needs to be is unique. And actually, a lot of our clients use employee ID because it's hopefully already unique. So yes, go for that. Okay.
The second question we have is, can you make the amount of days a request for each request?
Can you, I'm assuming the question was the period of time until it's overdue. The answer is no, but there's a little more detail to add there. It's established via the preference setting itself right from the moment of request. And you can set it for the whole system. You can set it role by role, or you could get user specific. Every person has a different length of time. However, what can happen, regardless of which scope you use and whatever the value is, each user, if it does become overdue, they can request an extension, which you then as a records manager can approve or deny. You can also, whether or not they request the extension, you're able as a records manager to go in and just manually change the overdue length of time or the expected return date so that it doesn't even become overdue in the first place.
Here's another question. Two-part. So in which version of the Gimmal Physical does the scan and ingest option available? I don't know if you know that.
It's available in every version, but the related question is, in order to use that particular function I showed you there, it does require you to have our eDocs module. So if you don't have the eDocs module yet, talk to Marcia. She can lead you down the right path to get that implemented.
That's probably the follow-up to that was, do we have an option to scan our physical documents to PDF version without the scan and ingest request made?
So, yeah, you need the eDocs module to make all that work.
Okay, great. Another question that says, another message comes up for items requested that are not in the home location, but that doesn't get a failed status, correct?
Well, yes. Let's just dig a little deeper. If an end user requests something that's currently not in its home location, Gimmal Physical translates that as it's not available for fulfillment. So that person will get a waitlisted message that, hey, I can't deliver this to you because it's not in its home location.
Okay. There was a follow-up question to that asked, can we turn off that not in home location workflow, as it does cause some extra steps and we don't want to use home locations so much?
The quick answer is no, but whoever is asking that question, I would love it if you would give us some details around the use case, why it is you're doing that or want to do that. That would actually be very helpful to us.
Yeah, we'll connect on that after Tim. Perfect. Okay, another question is, I'm sorry, this was another follow-up to the scan and ingest. If so, it says, if so, where are these PDF versions stored in Gimmal Physical and how big is the storage?
Yeah, the storage is basically unlimited, but here's kind of the details you need to know. If you have an on-premises installation of Gimmal Physical, it's simply stored on your web server. So it can grow as large as your server capacity is. If you're using Gimmal Physical in the cloud, we're storing it in the Azure cloud, and we do monitor that because storage space, it costs us money. So there is some practical limit, but it's way up there, guys. Unless you've just got terabytes and terabytes of records, it will not be an issue for you.
Let's see if we can get through a couple more here. To set the default transfer location to the user themselves, how is that done?
It's done automatically, actually. Every time a user is created, we set that for you. But if you want to change it, you can go in and just simply change the value of that barcode to any other person or place.
Thank you. Another one is, why is the filling not recommended?
Yeah, great question. The reason it's not recommended is it's a shortcut. What you're doing on that page, guys, is you're saying, okay, I can just click this button and check these items out. Well, here's what happens in real life sometimes, right? You take the shortcut, the convenience, you click fulfill, and it actually shows in the audit trail now that those items were checked out to Joe Schmo or whomever. Well, you get busy as a records manager, then you never actually do it. So in the end, it's the same risk you always have because you're saying, yes, I transferred these things. We've just made it so easy there is why we say we don't recommend it, but it's there. And it's there for you to use if you want to. Just be aware that it's a little too easy, in my opinion, to make a mistake.
Great. Thanks, Tim. We kept you a little bit longer than normal, but appreciate that. And we'll have a couple follow-ups with what we talked about with the home location. So thanks everybody for attending. That's our session today. We certainly hope you enjoyed this. As a reminder, and thank you, Tim, for putting this up, these education sessions are offered twice a month across our Gimmal Records, Gimmal Discover, and Gimmal Physical product line. This is the upcoming schedule, including Q4, which the announcement and registration links just went out for that this morning. So if you didn't get that, let me know, and I'll let you know the location to do that to sign up. If you'd like more information on the topic we talked about today, please let me know. I can always get Tim involved, but we really appreciate you all being with us. Have a great day, and we will see you next time. Thank you.